Mike from around the world, are you there?
I am here, Pastor Paul. How's the volume?
Volume is good. Hang on.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds great. Let me set you up there. Let me get the microphone in place. Great to have you on the broadcast.
Good to be here. Good to see you guys back.
It's good to be back. I'll tell you that right now. It's crazy over there.
I began to rumble when you got over there, didn't it?
It really did. I mean, there were 10 rockets the first day, and I said, oh boy, but then 450 before I got out of there. We sent you an email when we were getting ready to go on the Sea of Galilee. We had no problems there. Windy day, but no problems.
I saw that. And you know what else? I'm going to share something with you guys that
Mike? Okay, Mike, you're completely can't hear you at all. Just it sounds like a computer talking. There's no.
How do we sound now?
Okay, you're back. So you were going to share something with us, and we didn't get to hear it.
Yeah, it's trying to go out again, it seems like.
Okay, so
am I clear?
You're clear.
Clear now?
You're clear now. What were you going to share with us?
Okay, it sounds like it's doing that again.
Nope, you're all right.
Okay, we're good. Okay, that boat ride you were on, right?
Yes.
That indicates something to me. Now, just to give you already know about what I shared with Angela some years back.
Yeah.
And before I met you. Okay, now on that boat ride indicates, it's almost like a time marker. Don't you find it strange what's happening right at that time?
Yeah.
All the events that surround that ride. Just look at all the events. You think that's coincidence?
No, that's funny. You say that because we took the ride across the Sea of Galilee and of course the whole nation, and then everything just blew sky high there.
Yeah, like Israel. First time they don't have a leader. There's two of them in debate, and explosions going off in the oceans, and of course you may not know about that yet, but
well, we do.
Things begin to happen all at one time.
Well, we do. I mean, we want to ask you about that. There's been a major explosion in the South China Sea. Radiation. We're hearing there's a radiation spike. Can you tell us? Was it a submarine, or what's happened in the South China Sea?
Well, that's one of their patrol. That's one of their patrol areas. It's also one of their. It's a very disputed place underneath the waters. The waters are somewhat like the lands, and they have disputed places under the ocean, places of patrol, things of that nature. Now, we live in very tense times, and due to America's divisive actions, people are going to take advantage. They will begin to subvert quite a few things, quite a few policies. This impeachment fiasco does not help anything, because what it does is it conveys to everybody else this is their chance to move. And so while attention is diverted, many things are taking place, both under the sea, on land. The Middle East is a very unstable place, of course, but things will increase there. I wouldn't worry about Bibi, though, because I'll need him back fairly quickly. That I'm confident of. But
now, when you say that's because, are you anticipating possibly an acceleration in the conflict going on right now in the Middle East?
Well, they're going to have some sort of some strong figures there, and unfortunately, they don't have strong figures that can withstand that type of stress and leadership at the same time. So they will actually, all the people who stand behind him will call for him back. That'll happen, because that situation is escalating fast.
I believe that, and what we're seeing is, of course, folks, for those of you who may not know, but besides the 450 rockets that were flying while I was there, Israel's went in, and Israel took out the leader of the Islamic Jihad, which started this whole process. But now they've went in and they've really done some damage in Syria, blowing up Iranian outposts, 20 of them the other night. And I would say that Iran can't set back forever. Israel even hinted, I shouldn't say hinted, the new defense minister of Israel, Natalie Bennett, told Iran that we are cutting off your tentacles wherever they stretch. But we may just go in and take out the octopus in Iran, which would be Tehran, Iran. So, Mike, is something brewing out there in the Middle East? I mean, are we about ready to see potentially Psalms 83 war?
Well, it'll trickle all over the place. You know, some of the rockets that were being fired, specifically the ones in Syria. You know that Iron Dome, it took multiple missile intercepts to take it down, which means they used a higher grade missile. That wasn't a rocket they took out, that was a missile. So that changes quite a few things. That was an Iranian missile, by the way. And they detected that Iron Dome, took it down. But it took a few intercepts from Iron Dome to take it down. So they have more en route. A lot more en route, and that's taking place from the north, which is something to track. Not so much from the south anymore, but from the north. And we're looking at Russian-grade material or equipment being moved out there. Putin will no doubt take advantage of this positioning. He's already taken up all diplomatic positions that America has abandoned out there. Unfortunately, our country, America, is in a bit of a debacle right now because the ambassadorship from our country is being disputed among many different nations. We've shown a great weakness, and there are geniuses out there that will take advantage of this, and it will escalate. It most certainly will escalate. But Israel, being at the center of it, they're going to be forced to enter into a type of conflict that will no doubt, it's not going to slow down because there are too many. Jordan has turned against Israel. Jordan has totally turned against Israel. There's been talks of Jordan and Pakistan are talking very closely now, and they will no doubt, they've already said that if something were to break out in the Middle East, they would not support U.S. interest. They would side with any Islamic plans there. So it's a big situation. We're seeing the beginnings of an unfolding of something that will last, increase and last. They probably will not call it a war. I made a statement. People will see at least right there at 300,000 people die, and they still won't call it a war.
What?
They're going to deny that war tag when there'll be lots of deaths. It's a very serious situation, right? And what happened to Israel, in my humble opinion, is something that is more tactical than anything else. I wouldn't be surprised if later on they find out that there's some operatives sowing dissidence in Israel against the leadership that would actually do something. Now, if you notice around the world, any leader around the world who has a very stern policy about combat, they're being taken out left and right, one way or the other. Have you noticed this?
Yeah, I noticed that.
There's something about the weakening of leadership globally. This is not just any specific region. This is all over the globe. One of the more cautioning parts is that it's happening simultaneously, and it is an unprecedented thing there. Nobody has seen this before. Not the dismantling of those individuals of strength who would actually do something. We're seeing a severe change all over this world.
So are we watching the unraveling of all of the strong men taking out the strong leaders of the world to weaken the nations, to bring them under some kind of a one world government? I mean, is this part of the process? Look at the chaos, Mike. I mean, there's 25 different capitals in the world right now are having major violence, protest, or rioting. I mean, have you ever seen that before?
No, and each leader they're removing or attempting to remove from office they're individuals. They don't stand for any group, any background groups. They make moves on their own, and they're quite bold in doing so, right? They may not do everything by everybody's standard, but they will not bow down to anybody, which is the problem. So it seems like there's a removal of all those who will not bow down to certain things or who won't give in to certain things. Every single leader that's being removed is they have tenacity, and that quality, that attribute in a leader obviously has been seen, and now they're being removed all over the world.
Obviously, Hong Kong is a mess, and and La Paz, Bolivia, and there's been, of course, Beirut, Lebanon. We also see Baghdad is now a disaster, and in Iran, 100 cities are rioting against the Islamic regime of Iran. Do you think Israel wants to take advantage of the Iranian government under siege? The Iranian government raised the price of gas by 300%. The people are coming out of the streets saying, "What are you doing?" Will Israel jump in and try to take on their arch enemy here at that time, or what's going to happen next?
Well, I have no doubt that dealing with the Mossad, they're all over the place, and they're probably well embedded in the Iranian system, both with the public and the government. So there's no doubt in my mind that something is underway right now. But with the removal or with the hindrance of Bibi Netanyahu, that's a very bad move. Here's why. He's the only one that's able to keep certain military powers in check. Now, you have to note something here. I know it may sound like it's a little biased towards Israelis rather than Arabic individuals, but he made a statement that on purpose, because he understands that there's a Arabic influence inside of Israel.
Right.
And if they get any leaders that are loyal to any Arabic nation, that will be an Islamic nation, they will take down Israel from the inside. Now, we all know prophecy. And with the removal of a stone that refused to move, there's going to be political problems in Israel. There's going to be military problems in Israel.
Folks, Mike Around the World's with us. Mike from Around the World. Mike, we're talking about Israel. We're talking about global issues taking place around here. Of course, the president is under siege with this impeachment deal going on, but it seems to be the biggest waste of time in history. But now there's been an indictment today. The FBI, I should say the FBI official, has just come under a criminal investigation for fabricating the evidence in the Russiagate probe. This was the FBI official who lied by using to the FISA court to get the surveillance warrants on Carter Page, which ultimately then led to surveillance wiretapping on President Trump and at that time, candidate Trump and his entire campaign. Are we about ready to see a reverse the curse situation here? Is there getting ready to be wholesale? Are we going to see arrests going on now in the other side of the wall here?
You're going to see it on both sides. Unfortunately, with this situation, in my opinion, this is my opinion, right? So take this with a whole fleet of tractor trailers full of salt. But I do not believe they're going to stray away from this course. I believe that they're going to go ahead and move ahead with the impeachment. Yeah. I believe that there are going to be some individuals who serve time over this. I believe that it's going to bind the hands of certain powers in government. I also believe that some of the innocent parties are going to pay a penalty for this also. I'm somewhat worried about Vice President Pence. I am, because they're dragging his name into it.
Yeah.
Here's what they're doing. You can initially start an inquiry based on one thing. But when you depose witnesses and some truths come out concerning other federal matters, if they move towards those federal matters, forgetting about the initial reasons. And so what they're doing is both sides are going to prosecute those who are involved for initial reasons, but it's going to change some of the things that will stick will be the violations of federal law and violations of the seat of the presidency concerning recent matters. And that's exactly what they were doing from the beginning. They needed to get them in there so they could actually have this thing activated to go ahead with the infractions. And all it is infractions. Unfortunately, they're going to push until they can't push anymore. And with our present day democracy and all the divisions, it's too much confusion in place. So what will happen is you're going to see a few people removed from power. You're going to see unknown players step up to the plate. And this is troublesome. This is troublesome. So we're going to be dealing with a bunch of unknown players during a time when America needs its greatest defense persons in power, but that's not going to happen.
I'm hearing, and let's just talk about this for a moment, folks. But if you keep removing people, let's say cabinet members, let's say Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, I'm hearing he's about ready in the next few days. We're going to hear he's going to be gone. Let's just say you start removing cabinet players, then under secretaries step up and start running the show. And if you get too many of those, you don't know who in the world you got. I mean, you could have deep state players who have worked their way up to the top. You know, and this is what I'm hearing you say, Mike, that all of a sudden we have unknown individuals holding key positions in the cabinet that could trigger other plans and other plots that may have been in motion for years. Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh, absolutely. That could very well happen. But the weakening portion is one of the biggest troubles, you know, because you don't know. You're not going to know where these guys are going. You're not going to know who they're loyal to. You just won't know. And because they won't know, there are going to be plenty of things happening. So here's what you watch for. Watch for resignations. That's always a telltale sign right before arrests. So watch for who resigns. And then you'll find out which departments, which places to seek. Because in truth, you know, and Pastor Paul, I always have to stay centered with prophecy. Now, biblically, everything happens according to the pattern of prophecy.
Right.
And everything is foreshadowed. Well, even the beast, when he gains power, in Revelation 17, doesn't it say that 10 kings who have received no kingdom as of yet will 1 hour with the beast?
Yes.
So they can hand their power over to the beast.
Yes.
Well, that's got to be foreshadowed. It was in the Old Testament. It was foreshadowed. These unknown players popping in.
Yep.
During a time when the entire kingdoms would change. And here we have the same thing again. In fact, historically, this has happened every single time. Not one time did it not happen. It's happened every single time. And we're seeing the same pattern play out again. Unfortunately, they're going to keep pushing until this is done. And take note of something else. The UN is they're doing something with a transfer of power. You got to watch this, because some of the individuals, if you notice, the UN is a foreign entity, correct?
Yeah, right.
Now, but they're taking over major roles that we once had.
Yeah.
Right. The UN is doing this. They're taking over roles that the U.S. had. You're going to see more and more of that. So this whole paradigm that we are living in, right? This comfortable place, somewhat comfortable place where we understand how things are running, is changing fast, because all the players who represented some of the old ideologies are being forcefully removed in a very strange way. I think it's spiritually. I do. I think it's a coordinated spiritual thing. There are too many things that are synchronizing right now. I believe it's spiritual, but nevertheless, it's happening. So
wow.
This plus the other things going on, there's no coincidence to all these happenings.
Mike, let's talk about the 5 waves of energy a little bit now, and Nibiru, or Planet X, or Planet number 9, or whatever, this force, this unseen, we suppose it's unseen, binary system. I mean, I spent time in Israel. I did an interview with 3 different rabbis, 2 of them of which study some of the prophecies of rabbinical writings, and how there's prophecies about this new star that has 7 planets around it, that is going to enter into our solar system, bringing a ton of debris and chaos and confusion to the earth. Now, this is similar to some of the scriptures in the book of Isaiah 24 and the book of Revelation chapter 8, with some deep impacts. I guess with the waves of energy, which you introduced to us about 6 or 7 years ago, and now we obviously are now more and more people are believers. As a matter of fact, it's the soft disclosure about cosmic rays is something we're hearing all the time now in the scientific community. So, you know, you gave us a nice heads up on it, and we're seeing the effects of it. What should we look for now? Because there's extreme cold. We went from extreme heat to extreme cold in America, and like somebody turned off a switch. And there's been typhoons, and there's been all kinds of earthquakes, and there was even an earthquake in Rome 2 weeks ago at 4.4 that shook the Vatican. I mean, what should we look for now, Mike? What is the update on the 5 waves of energy?
Pastor, it's November 21st, and pulse arrivals will begin here shortly. because we're in November. December's coming. We'll feel it in December. But they're starting to notice cracks in the Earth forming. Here's what I mean. A couple days ago, a couple of scientists noticed some cracks, and I believe they reported some from Greenland. Some were in the Middle East. Two were in America. And these cracks are deep. They've come up with a new type of technology, and these cracks are enormous. They go very deep. When I say deep, I mean deep. They're noticing that something is pulling at this planet so incredibly hard. But when it pulls, it'll pull for about 2.5 minutes and then release. Then at about a 72 to 84 hour cycle, it will pull and release. Those intervals are becoming shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. So this is naturally caused by an external force. The modeling of that is just imprecise because there are too many variables. So, but these brand new cracks, now these cracks are not on fault lines. These cracks are not near where you would think they would be near, right? These are unknown fracture points that nobody knew about before. And that's what's causing so much a type of stir before they can put it out, because they have to have some sort of idea what's causing it before they can publish anything. So right now it's still in the observation phase. Nevertheless, we're experiencing more and more cracks. This external pressure has also affected some of the equipment that's on Mars, some of the equipment that's on the moon, some of the, well, if you believe in that, but some of the equipment sent out to various places, anomalies are being
detected. Did you say equipment on Mars?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, are we talking little rovers or probes or?
No. Well, yeah, we have rovers up there and we have probes, but they're detecting more and more seismic anomalies. And when they do verification, when one of the let's call it a mothership flies around, they're doing scans of the surface to see if they can see any disruptions by way of heat sources in Mars, right? By way of heat vision. Let's put it that way. And sure enough, there's enough heat in the interior of Mars and actually it's heating up inside of Mars, by the way, but they're detecting all the same things happening on Mars is also happening to us. So this detection is solar system wide, basically, but we have pretty good observation there. Now with these tugs, what that means is it's only a matter of time before the fault lines are severely affected.
What?
I don't mean with a minor, 7.0 earthquake. I mean really affected. We're talking about a long durational pull on some of the breaks that are already in the crust. We're talking about a rearrangement of the crust, which will do nothing more than loose the waters. It will shake up and churn the waters badly, is what we're going to see.
Are you saying, okay, so you're saying there's been a crack in Greenland, or near Greenland, a crack in the Middle East, 2 cracks in America. You're saying that there's 2.5 minute at times gravitational pull so strong on the Earth that it's cracking the crust of the Earth, and that we're coming to a point where it's not going to be a 7.0 or an 8.0, but I mean a major quake. You're saying it's going to release the fountains of the waters of the Earth?
Yeah, well, it will also shake the basins of the ocean, because that type of displacement is, we just haven't experienced anything like that, because we have not experienced an external force like that, not in our lifetimes, but we're coming very close to that. Any external force that comes in close to our solar system is going to begin to dislodge. It's going to begin to affect the crust of the Earth. So as far as stability, places to go and all this, that, and the other, no one knows, because it will affect us globally. The sad story about these inbound energies, inbound gravitational influences, electromagnetic increases in certain metals that are telltale signs of several things. Chemicals becoming destabilized, all these different gamma rays shooting out from in the Earth, all these things are multiplying. And as they multiply, it will affect the crust of the Earth in such a way that nothing is predictable, but everybody's going to see it. For example, there's a bitter cold system forming right now as we speak, right? Now, if you look on your weather forecast, you're not going to see it, right? I'm telling you right now, so I mean bitter cold. It's a fast front, So when it moves through, it's going to deep freeze a lot of things. But when it goes away, it's going to heat up again. But we're talking about a deep freeze is coming. A deep freeze is forming right now. This is seen through patterns in the magnetosphere. The weather patterns are being directly affected by the magnetosphere.
Mike,
but it will begin to stick, and it's going to begin to affect the Middle East this year, now more than ever, which is not a good sign, right? Not the Middle East, because you're looking at stall fronts that will happen in the Middle East and cold pressure. Now, with this change in magnetics, Pastor Paul, this is caused by multiple anomalies. It's very strange to explain without modeling, but let's just say we had some Mercury-sized rocks heading in our direction. Mercury-sized, big rocks. Each one of those rocks is going to carry a mass. This mass is going to displace electromagnetic forces. Those forces can be detected by subtle changes in our magnetosphere. So you're looking at something that it's not like one object with a pretty smooth, disruption. We're looking at different variances of disruption on our magnetosphere, right? So kind of like if you would take one hand and hold up a pillow, right, in the palm of your hand. So you have an imprint of the palm of your hand. But now take about 1,000 people to lift up one pillow and you got a bunch of fingerprints. So it's disrupting all over the place because we're having a bombardment of these forces.
So Mike, but you just said, first of all, folks, I'm holding up the little green file because some of the things Mike just said is on the green file. And I know he hasn't seen it because he hasn't seen it. So some of the things you just said about the disturbance of the crust of the earth in a major way is on the green file. And we haven't had a chance to bring that out yet. So Mike, did you just say, let's pretend that there's like forces headed toward the earth like Mercury? Like what? Are you talking about rocks of Mercury? What are you talking about? Mercury-sized
rocks. You can call them rocks.
Meteors?
Coming for us, right? Coming this way. A bunch of them.
Made of mercury? Made of mercury?
Well, not necessarily made of mercury, but about the size of mercury. Pretty big pieces, huge objects.
Oh, you're saying the size of the planet Mercury?
Yeah. Yeah, we're not talking about some small meteorites and things like
so
that.
now, Mike, so
some major things here.
Okay, now is this part of this debris field that's coming, let's say, around 2023 to 2025, or is this something later?
No, this is not later. This is close.
Okay.
Very close.
Okay.
I believe that May 12, 2020 will be a very telling date. I believe that will be
May 12th. Let me write this down. May 12th, 2020 may be a very
telling date. It'd be a very telling date.
A telling date.
Yeah, because in visual observations from the average person, no doubt, you're going to have lots of people seeing lots of things by that time. Lots of things.
So we got to stay on top of this because as you're looking at the prophecies of the Bible, and then you're looking at the scientific evidence that we can see, and of course you can see things we can't. So with that in mind, and for these scientists that left this little green file for us, when you started saying some of the things you said tonight was directly said here by several NASA scientists, okay, that have left information on the file. Okay, so that was the first confirmation I got on some of that stuff because I've searched the internet and it's nowhere on there, and you just confirmed some of that. So this disruption of the crust due to the gravitation, and can I say something to you? Brock has got this question, and I don't want to get you off track because you're rolling, so don't lose track. Just one question. Graviton, according to theory, is a missing particle that makes gravity work, and CERN is trying to find this particle of graviton. Would there be a reason for that, Mike? Yeah, because identification of the properties. Graviton is a simple way of saying that they can't calculate, or they have nothing to represent some of the calculations. So they're searching for
elements in their calculation that have to be there. All
So
the
with
signs
that-
say they're there.
Okay,
right?
so would that have anything to do with Planet X or Nibiru or this, because the numbers aren't working out for them. They know there's something out there.
Well, now here's where we get into something very different with CERN. Okay, throughout history, every time anybody historically has spoken about a close approach, you also have stories about beings and external entities, correct? Right?
Yeah.
The introduction of exotic materials and forces that become visible in certain times, in certain ages, all of that coincides. If they happen to find or can identify graviton, it gives them great visuals of things that are really out there. In other words, if they can actually find anything, I mean anything that would represent the properties of that of graviton, that hypothetical particle, they could theoretically see into a realm that cannot be seen. They would be able to peer into things that nobody else can peer into, because to actually be able to visualize or to see the particle itself is to be able to see the unseen. You could see the opposite of reality. And that gets into let's just say it this way. They would be able to see all spirits at that moment if they could do this. Because as it appears, and this is, certain scientists know this mathematically, and they've been studying spiritual activity also. They have been looking into spirit. Who do you think is funding all this crazy spiritual stuff on television, right? You think it's the average consumer? No. Somebody else is funding all these ghost shows. They're doing this on purpose because they need to correlate that data with some real science. And what they're doing is every time these folks go out there with these different devices and things like this that they did not build, that they're borrowing chips for, that are manufactured from people they don't even know about, they're gathering information. And that it just so happens that this spiritual anomaly, right, has some of the properties that are
So you're saying
with the theoretical graviton.
These are the ghost hunters. These guys, these little gadgets that are trying to record the supernatural or the demonic forces or angelic forces or whatever. They're actually reaching into a fifth dimension, a fourth dimension. That's what you're saying, and that's why the quest for graviton is so important to them.
Right, and they need detailed. They need some information. They need data collected, so they're not going to spend 100 years trying to look in the wrong direction. But what they're doing is gathering information on types of energy, right? Types of combinations of infrared and all these different types of waveforms. So if they can get the right combination from some of these people or other people, major universities right now are being paid billions of dollars. Listen, billions of dollars to do spiritual things. They're hunting for haunted articles and artifacts, and there's some billionaires, the same people who fund CERN, are paying for this too. And CERN come to find out, CERN and a couple of other companies are behind this whole thing because they're trying to find trace energies, right, that deal with being able to see it peer into places. Not to mention, if you had the properties of a graviton, you could effectively make devices that could affect people, but can never be seen, can never be smelled, can never be heard, can never be touched.
You could do massive manipulation of the populace if you could get your hands on graviton, because no one could. Yeah. All right, just freeze that for a minute because that's another show, guys. I think this is like another serious discussion. You got to go back. We can't leave us hanging. May 12th, 2020. Telltale date. I mean, you got to talk to us a little bit. Now, Mike, you got the crust tearing apart. You're saying, oh, yeah, don't worry. There's things coming toward the Earth the size of Mercury. Mike, you got to go back to this because you've tapped into the little green file now. That means we're getting into some areas. What do you mean by May 12th, 2020 is a telltale date? What can the average person notice something going on that day?
I think the average person will probably be somewhat plagued by as our magnetosphere changes, as the influences on our magnetosphere change, so will everybody's thought patterns, sleep patterns, bone aching, and everything else will be off the scales. People will be uncomfortable. I mean, just flat out uncomfortable. Many people will have vivid dreams and everything else. All of this because of an increase in or fluctuations in our magnetosphere. As this other system comes in, the gravitational forces, now everybody understands gravity, right? As it turns out, gravitational forces are exotic forces. They're very different than most universities have taught. They know this, but they couldn't prove it, so now they can. Anyway, as the gravitational forces fluctuate, right? Magnetic energies will also fluctuate. Your brain is stabilized. Your biological brain is stabilized by stabilized magnetic forces within tolerances. If the external magnetic forces change, so will the way you behave, so will the way you think, the way you dream, everything else. As it turns out, you know how they say conscious and subconscious mind?
Yeah.
You have two brains, right? This is published. You have two brains active at the same time. The problem was they have built equipment that only observes one type of, or a few types of energy. Come to find out, the other side of your brain is also highly aware and highly active. And it does not show on regular waveforms, so they can't really say it's active, during that part. But anyway, this other part is largely responsible for, it deals with imagination. It can change your behaviors in a heartbeat, but it also gives a person a type of creativity. And the good emotions, let's say the good emotions, it will influence the good emotions. If that is disrupted, people will turn violent very fast. People will turn violent. People won't care that they're violent. So, but this has been changing slowly over time. And if you've noticed in society, people have become exactly what they are on the inside. If they're hateful people, now they're being hateful and they don't care to hide it. If they are, whatever they are, they're actually displaying this on the outside. So imagine the same thing that happened to the cosmonauts happening to everybody else. When the cosmonauts went up without a replication of the Earth's magnetic field, they turned into animals. They were vicious. They began to attack each other and everything else. They never recovered because neurological connections are broken in the mind and in the body. This is happening. The degradation of the nervous system in us is happening. People are experiencing this right now. It's just not. It's not strong enough to really for somebody to be hospitalized by or that all at one time. But no doubt, people are having greater exotic dreams. There will be a time when people are going to be plagued with dreams and they won't be able to sleep too much. Dreams can induce fear, right?
Yeah.
Neurons can induce fear. So now you're going to be dealing with all these emotions. And half the people in the world right now can't control their emotions without, that issue. But we're going to have that. We'll also have an increase in our skies of forces that will have auroras all over the earth, right?
Yeah, that is increasing. That's increasing quite a bit, actually, the auroras. And there's a golden tint from the southern hemisphere, like in Tanzania and southern Australia, South Africa. They're seeing the sunsets are turning a golden tint. And then in the north, we're seeing very exotic auroras, spectacular auroras, which means there's more radiation and cosmic rays in the earth.
Yeah, that is also, it means high-speed particles are slamming into those areas. We'll begin to see this all over the planet. And I know a lot of people will think that's beautiful, but it will not. That'll be a sign of something very bad. If we start seeing auroras, there is no probability that the Earth will rip itself apart. It will begin to heat up from the inside out.
So yes, absolutely. As you've said many times, the core of the Earth is heating up. Magma is moving. You've identified troubled spots for earthquakes like under Italy. You're concerned about that. Cascadia subduction zone, New Madrid. I mean, San Andrea fault line. Plus, over in what you say over in the North Atlantic is an area you're very concerned about. Even under New York and Pennsylvania, there's some trouble spots, isn't there?
Yeah, and Italy is still at the top of the list. It really is.
Yeah, you say that.
I don't believe they're prepped for that. It's going to happen sooner or later.
Should they be setting Moloch in front of? Okay, so should they be setting the god Moloch in front of the Colosseum where many Christians were slaughtered? Would you set the god of Moloch in front of the entrance? Because that's what they're going to do until, and I don't know why they set this date, but they say they're going to leave it there till March 29th. I don't know if there's anything significant about that, but But this god Moloch, which is one of the worst pagan gods of slaughter, why you would set that in front of a Christian, where Christians were slaughtered in front of the Colosseum in Rome, but they're doing it. It's already there.
Yeah, well, I think that's quite obvious. I tell you what, those guys are not to step on anybody's toes, but they are steeped in, they have read so much material regarding spiritual things that they believe that they are the spiritual guidance of this earth. They really do. And when you set things up like that, well, they're marking their own doom. It seems like, if they call that thing onto themselves. Here's a caution for me. Anytime somebody erects something like that, they're paying homage to it.
Yeah.
Period. They're paying homage. And they only pay homage during certain times of a rise, right? Now, this is so bold. This is ridiculous. But, at some point, I know that Christians often deal with that spiritual topic. But I wonder what people will do when more and more people see spiritual things. Those times will turn everything upside down. Hopefully everybody can stay sober and not be too taken by that subject. But it just means that the way we perceive things is really about the change. With the change in forces and the introduction of exotic particles that are introduced to the earth through long intervals, people see differently. People will perceive differently. Many will not. They'll go with what they see before their eyes because they're Christians, right? But what would the average person do if a being of power actually manifested and actually interacted with the people? Well, and then it told them that there was an alternate history. They would begin to believe that.
They would believe it.
Because they have proof in front of their eyes. Because right now, most Christians are saying, well, prove it, prove this, prove that. They're not operating by faith. Even the internet has caused people not to use their discernment so much, right?
Right.
You don't have to seek the Lord for anything. Just go to Google. And so they're out of the practice of relying upon the Father for most things, and they don't trust what they're given spiritually. So we're going to face a day of manifestation of more and more things. Whatever happens at CERN will spread around this world. Because that happens in CERN because of magnetic influences, strong magnetic influences. So imagine when the magnetosphere does the same thing. Well, then everybody's going to start seeing things shuffle around in the dark, this, that, and the other, to become quite common, which will promote to a new height these ghost hunting folks. And that'll be a different day, but I believe those days. Strong delusion's coming. Yep. Strong delusion. They'll believe a lie and be damned. It's right it's during the era of the Antichrist, which we know we're approaching very quickly. Mike, I tell you what I want to do. Look, the time's getting away. I know we have you on Thursday nights, but can we get you back next Wednesday? I think next week's Thanksgiving. Could we get you the night before Thanksgiving? Are you free? Yeah, I'm good to go.
We got to talk about May 12th, 2020 a little more. We got to go in depth a little bit, okay? This is such great information tonight, and it's all matching biblical prophecy. Strong delusion's coming. Mike,
I pray everybody's prepared, Pastor Paul. Really do.
Amen. Thank you so much for coming on and being with us tonight, Mike. We'll see you next Wednesday night.
I'll be here.
All right. God bless, brother.